Yeah, so the movie we were probably most looking forward to going into this past release weekend was 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which, as we mentioned, is directed by Nia DaCosta, which she kind of has a somewhat okay track record between Candyman, which is fine, Marvels we like a decent amount, and I really liked Hedda. So coming off of that, I feel like Hedda was, from what I had seen at the time, the best movie she had made. So I kind of gained some steam, and I was getting really excited for this movie. And then all the reviews have been great. This is the second of the 28 Years franchise or route within this franchise.
I don't know what to call the franchise.
The 28.
28 franchise?
Sure. When I say the 28, it makes me for some reason think of the 355, which is not a good movie. But anyway, so the 28 franchise, I don't know.
Sure.
But this was continuing from 28 Years Later. We got Jack O'Connell, Ray Fiennes, Emma Laird, and Alfie Williams. And this is just the continuation of Spike, his story, where he kind of ended up at the end of that first film last year with Jimmy Crystal and the Jimmies. And now Ray Fiennes is still doing some potential experiments on, is it Samson? And trying to maybe crack the code on how to kind of rehabilitate some of these infected. And it's just kind of progressing us to what that likely third chapter is going to be. But yeah, I'm not going to bury the lead. I loved this movie. And it is easily one of my favorite horror sequels. I don't necessarily look at these movies going into them as being horror films straight up. I think of them more as like a thriller. 28 Days Later kind of freaked me out a little bit, but as we've kind of gotten comfortable within this franchise, it's still just, it's engaging, it's suspenseful, it's thrilling. There's some really grotesque gore in this movie. There's a barn sequence pretty early on that really made my stomach turn a good amount and made me feel sick to my stomach. I love the Jimmies. I love what they do with Ray Fiennes in this movie. We'll talk a little bit more ad nauseum, a little bit more in detail as to kind of our overall thoughts. But Corey, I'm going to throw it to you because I think you might have a different thought or view of this movie than I.
I feel like I'm getting punked. Seeing this movie premiered for critics like a month ago, maybe.
What? Yeah.
And
I think 2025 still, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like December or something, and people were coming out of that being like, this is going to be one of my favorite movies of 2026. Like, this movie's... Just so many people were saying it, and I was just like, oh, wow, that's pretty high praise for this movie that I was, like, somewhat excited for. And then just when it came out this weekend, everybody was like, this movie is fucking amazing. This thing is special. This is a thing. Mm-hmm. And I saw the movie, and I was like, are we watching the same thing? Are we? I don't know.
Did my theater get the wrong cut of the film?
I did not care for this movie, and I don't know. A lot of like spoilery type things I want to talk about, so I'll keep it brief for this non-spoiler part. We talked about the 28 franchise last year before 28 Years Later. I love 28 Days Later. I think it's great. 28 Weeks I think is very underrated.
Yeah, solid sequel.
And then 28 Years Later, I think, I've said a lot, I love the first half of that movie. Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son hunting for fucking infected and that community that they have on the little causeway or whatever. I love that whole sequence. When it transitions more into like the Ray Fiennes stuff and the Jimmy stuff and more of that, it felt more uneven to me and didn't work. And so that's why I think last week I even said that I was nervous that this movie was taking more from that second half, which it absolutely is.
Yeah,
Aaron Taylor Johnson's not in this movie, so don't expect him at all.
It made me to the point, because I've only seen 28 Years Later once, it made me, while watching it, I'm like, did he die? Like, I don't remember what happened with Aaron Taylor Johnson in the first movie. I was just like, where is he at?
Yeah, because he just had like the baby that Spike dropped off at the end of the first one, or 28 Years Later. So I was already kind of like, they're taking things I don't like from 28 Years Later and making a whole movie about it. And like you mentioned, this movie is kind of like two main stories going on of the Jimmies and Spike, and then of Ray Fiennes and trying to cure Samson and all this shit. Yeah. So those things just didn't interest me. They didn't work for me. And kind of want to get into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, go watch it. Come back and then watch this. So, to start off with the Jimmies, let's start there. I don't give a singular fuck about these characters. They showed up at the end of 28 Years Later, and it was such an odd way to end that movie. I think everybody in America was like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. And then like reading up that it was like based on this Jimmy Savile guy from the UK that was like a TV personality, and then he had some weird allegations or some bullshit come out about him. Yeah. Whatever. Felt just like a weird choice, and I continue to not give a fuck about them in this movie. They're just a weird, like, zany bunch of people that are like, ooh, we're crazy in the apocalypse. We wear tracksuits and we wear chains and necklaces and we're all named Jimmy. And I'm like, don't give a fuck. You don't add anything to this for me. I think Jack O'Connell is good. He's very, he's magnetic in the movie. I think that everyone's very committed. But for me, what in this arc, what didn't work was the character of Spike, because I really I love Alfie Williams still. I think he's great. But in that first movie, seeing him from going to that community where he's going out on his first hunt with his father, and then it transitions to him with his mom going out on a journey to meet Ralph Fiennes, and then losing his mom, and then kind of leaving the baby and going off on his own adventure. I thought that was such a great arc for his character. In this movie, he doesn't have an arc. It's, I'm a scared kid that needs to get out of this situation. And that's the whole movie, where I think it would have been more interesting if he were to like want to join the Jimmies and see them and see like, oh, this is like a new chapter for me. And then over the course of the movie realizes like, oh, these people are fucked up. But from the get-go in this movie, the very opening scene, it's like, no, he needs to get out of there. These people are fucked. And the whole movie is just him being like, I'm trying to find a way to escape. So that aspect of the movie just didn't work for me. And it felt like it was not focused on anything I was interested in. This is not an infected or zombie movie, so also don't go in expecting that.
Yeah, I don't have like a lot of negatives. Like I said, we're kind of opposites on how we feel about this movie. But the one I would maybe throw this way is that you get the least amount of exposure to those infected with the rage virus in this movie. It's very subdued. You get a couple of scenes with just like some other people out in the woods that Spike then kind of happens upon with the Jimmies. But there's not a lot of zombie terror like we got in the original two films and then 28 years later as well. So this one's a little bit more subdued. The most we get of anyone infected is through Samson. So, which I like what they do with them, but I was like, I want more of like that zombie feel to it. I wish we could have had more of that in here too.
Yeah, and so that was one half, like I said, and then the other part of this movie is Ralph Fiennes. He's Dr. Kelson. He's been out there forever, just trying to cure this, and he's got a bunch of medicines and stuff, and he kind of forms a bond with Samson. They spend probably the first 45 minutes of the movie just tripping out on morphine and just sitting on hills and looking at shit, and I'm like, okay. I think that I was more interested in this story beat more so than the Jimmy thing. I think the best scene in this movie is when Samson kind of gets cured partly by this thing, and he's like sitting on a train, and then flashes back to like kind of gets glimpses of his life before. I'm like, this is really interesting.
Yeah. And
then they cut away from that, and we don't do anything more with that. And which, like, granted, that we're probably getting a third movie, so it's like we could explore that more. I don't want to write the whole story here, but that was the part where I'm like, this is cool and new, and I wanted more of this specifically. But a lot of this is just them tripping on morphine, and Ralph Fiennes, playing songs on his little fucking vinyl thing, and like, the Iron Maiden thing is a big moment in this movie. That was like one of a lot of choices that I just didn't care for in the movie. I understand why people like this movie and dig it, but for me, I just wanted a bit more of the infected in the movie. Not that it's like, I just want a zombie movie. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I think it just focused on some of the wrong things and just took two storylines that I wasn't as interested in from the last movie and kind of went with those. So that's kind of my main issues with this movie.
Do you have any like big key positives? You mentioned that train sequence. I really like that scene too. That's like one of the few moments you get, aside from like the barn sequence, I think, where you get a lot of good like kind of horror elements. Are there any other kind of highlights for you throughout the movies? Maybe aside from performances. Alfie did great. O'Connell did great. Ralph Fiennes did great.
Like performances are all great. I think the movie looks good. I mean, I think Nia DaCosta brings a different visual style than Danny Boyle, where his is very like kind of frenetic and it's the camera on the infected as they're running a lot of times, and you still get some of that here. Another scene a very small moment with Samson early on is they're like hunting this person that's in the woods with like a bow and arrow, and a person's on the ground and he's looking at them, and it goes through his perspective, and he sees like an infected almost, or like a villain, like a threat to him.
Yeah. I'm
like, anything with Samson and like his perspective I thought was the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
And again, I just wanted more specifically with that. Again, this is spoiler stuff. My favorite chunk of this movie was the last like 5 minutes. when we see Cillian Murphy. He's back. It had been speculated that he's going to come back, so we see him, kind of following up from the end of 28 Days Later when they got this house and he's, teaching his the kid school stuff and just training him, which I just thought was so sweet.
I love that interaction. He's like, yeah, if you mention that in the test tomorrow, you'll probably get extra credit points. And she's like, you wrote the test. And he's like, I'm done talking.
I'll say no more. It was just so sweet. And I'm like, yeah, this is like a good little like society that they've kind of created there. And what I will say is I'm much more excited for the setup of the next movie than I was at the end of 28 Years Later.
Going into this one.
Yeah. So I think like with Cillian Murphy being like, all right, we got to save Erin Kellyman, who's also really good in this movie. I feel like she got a bad rap for being Enfys Nest in Solo and then one of the Flag Smashers.
Yeah, Flag Smashers, that's what it was.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, where like she was actually a good part of this movie as well, but seeing her and Spike and them saving them, I think that leads to something interesting for another movie. But I just like I didn't really vibe with this movie. I couldn't get into the story that they were giving me.
Okay, I get your take on it. I just went the complete opposite way on almost everything. Like I loved that break from Danny Boyle. Like I love Danny Boyle. He's one of my favorite directors. But his style, and I kind of got it more in 28 Years Later, where it kind of grated at me a little bit with like the frenetic shaking. I was like, okay, I get it, and I like it in 28 Days Later. I'm happy that we kind of have a little bit of a further progression of that style, and we lose some of that freneticness, but we do have like the camera being locked onto a person, getting that perspective. Like I really liked what Nia DaCosta did with the camera work in this film. It felt more kind of viewer friendly in a way that some of Danny Boyle's 28 stuff doesn't always feel viewer friendly. It's not as jarring. I still like those, but like I really liked where we went with this. I think there's some great moments of tension with. I mentioned the barn sequence already. I also love that immediate conversation. Maybe my favorite part is that conversation between Jack O'Connell as Jimmy Crystal with Ralph Fiennes, who he's like, hey, like, it's kind of nice to just like shoot the shit with you and talk to someone my age and like to be able to like see what you're going through and all that. But also, here's my debacle. I need you to be Satan so I can prove to my disciples that I'm your son. Like old Nick, what they call him. I love that. And I love how quick of a turn, how sadistic he is. He's like, and I need you to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to feed you your own intestines. And he just like says it with a smile, which like some crazy person saying like straightforward, painful, horrific shit to you in a very matter-of-fact way. It's done a lot, but it works so well. And I think Jack O'Connell, I like him more in this movie than I do in Sinners. Not to say he's not great in Sinners, but in this performance, he stole the movie for me. Him and Ralph Fiennes, especially in scenes together, I was like, damn, powerhouses all around. I'm not as bothered by, and I think having taken it in the context that this is a trilogy, so this is this middle chapter, I'm not bothered, because I'll agree, Alfie doesn't have the biggest arc. But I don't think he needs to have an arc, really, in this movie. And there's movies that are great that with characters that don't have arcs. Like Big Lebowski, he doesn't have a fucking arc, the dude. He's completely fine. He's the same throughout. Social Network, Mark Zuckerberg is the same throughout. He just gets more successful. Like Ferris Bueller is the same. Like there's characters that a movie doesn't need to have a character arc for it to be good. But I feel like it's more common for a good movie to happen with an arc where the main character or main focus of the movie has an arc. I think he has a great setup of an arc in the first movie, and I think it will maybe, hopefully, if they tie it up well. Who's directing the third one?
I don't know if Danny Boyle's coming back.
Yeah, I don't know if
I'm not sure.
I don't even know if they have a title announced.
I know Alex Garland's writing it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And still like his writing. I think it works well within this world. I like a lot of the stuff that they do with exploring curing Samson. I do think, and this kind of plays into that negative of me wanting more infected in this. I get it. Like, I think I've had enough of, in the zombie movies, the monster isn't the zombies, it's the people living in the apocalypse. And like, okay, I get it. And we kind of get that with the Jimmies. But also, I love that dynamic. I think it is a jarring shift at the end of 28 Years Later, but I think it works really well, especially one of the first scenes, if not the first scene, is kind of Spike's, like, taking an oath, basically, dueling, having, like, a ritualistic fight to the death with one of the members to take his spot, basically, because he has to be one of Jimmy's, like, 7 fingers, he calls them. I really liked that. I think that the disciples, they didn't annoy me because it made sense to me. I'm like, all of these kids were not alive when the world was normal. Only Jimmy Crystal was. or whatever his name was, I guess, before he was Jimmy Crystal, which we get at the beginning of 28 Years Later. And then they have the talk of the Teletubbies in this movie, too, which also was just so interesting when they're invading that house. But yeah, there's not a lot in this movie that really didn't work. I do like what they introduced with Samson and his perspective of what he sees. And then you get a little bit of a payoff with Ray Fiennes. He's like, I don't know what people look like to you. Or they have some sort of a exchange there. And I think that works well. I think kind of moving forward, I'm really excited. It ends on such a killer moment.
Mm-hmm.
And just a show of heroic acts of just, like, the daughter being like, do we help him? He's like, of course. And it ends. I'm like...
You get the score that comes back in.
The score comes back in. It works so well. So, I get your take on it. For me, I go the other way. I think that this was a more viewer-friendly foray into the 28 franchise. I think the stakes are there. I love Jimmy Crystal. I think he's a great villain. I like that scene with Iron Maiden. Awesome. I will say one of my favorite songs of all time is in this movie, Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead. I love that song. When it came on, I was like, it's a bit overplayed. It's a bit overused, especially in Danny Boyle stuff. He uses it a lot. So and Fincher uses it a lot.
And Creator had it.
I'm like, it's a bit overused. I feel like you could use something else here. To have that song and then Iron Maiden, I'm like, just do the Iron Maiden song. Like, do something different here. Mm-hmm. So like that one's kind of more of a nitpick for me, even though it is one of my favorite songs ever. But I'm just like, okay, took me out a minute. But yeah, I think the performances are great. Emma Laird was sensational. I really liked her in this. So I can't sing the praises of this movie enough. I do like it more than 28 Years Later.
Ooh.
Nothing's going to top 28 Days Later.
Yeah, what's your ranking, quick?
Bone Temple would be my second. 28 Days Later is favorite. Oh. Bone Temple second. And then it's 28 Weeks Later is so underrated. So good. No one talks about it.
So good.
The opening of that movie, I think, is the best opening in the entire franchise. Yeah. And it'd really be a toss-up between that and 28 Years Later for third. And then fourth. They're probably, for ease of it, they're probably tied for third right now, just because I don't know if I can make a decision between that. I've had more time with 28 Weeks Later. It was the first one I saw, so I think I have a little bit more nostalgia, so it might give it the edge. But what about you? I'd
go in release order: days, weeks, years, and then Bone Temple. Yeah, this one, Bone Temple, to me felt very much like a middle chapter of like, we need to get a character from here to here, which like for me was Spike, of getting him from the end of Years Later, and then to meeting up with Cillian Murphy. And the Jimmies are kind of gone now, so it's like, okay, what was their point then? Like, and again, you kind of mentioned of like the tired thing of like the real monsters are the humans, and it's like, yeah, okay, we're in a barn for 20 minutes and they're skinning people, but like, what is this progress? Like, what are we doing? I get, again, like, I understand why people like that element of it. It just wasn't for me. So it just really kind of, like I said, took some of those parts from 28 Years Later I didn't care as much about. I would have loved if this movie didn't have the Jimmies, and if they weren't in the 28 Years Later as well, if they were just completely erased. If this movie was Alfie Williams with Ralph Fiennes while they're trying to cure Samson, while Aaron Taylor Johnson is trying to find his son. I think that would have been such a more interesting movie, and then we can end on the same beat of meeting up with Cillian Murphy. I just think that, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson going out with some people from that community, and then you can still get some of that infected action of them, like, attacking them as they're trying to find Spike. I just think that, for me, was kind of where I was like, oh, that's how the first movie ended. Like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, fuck, my son is still out there. Yeah. It felt like a natural progression. So that, I guess that's kind of, maybe that was my own expectations. I don't know.
It does put a lot of kind of, not a lot, but there's pressure now on the third. Like, one, for them to make it, obviously, but three, how do they tie all this together? Because, like, I kind of agree with you. You don't need to have the Jimmies at all in this story, unless you're going to use it to lead to something in that third film. Or use it to influence Alfie a little, or Spike a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't mind that idea of, like, because if they completely drop Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's nowhere to be seen in this next one. I'd be like,
that's weird.
Where is he then? What is he? He's not looking for his son at all. Is he just all tied up with the new baby? Like, I feel like that would be kind of odd if they don't carry on that plot line or that subplot. I think it'd be that idea of, like, what if it was Spike and
Kelson.
I was gonna say Dr. Ian, but I'm like, I don't want to just say Dr. Ian Malcolm. Ian Kelson. I think that could have been good because, and this kind of does reveal maybe another issue I might have with the movie. We end, or almost end, 28 years later with him with Dr. Kelson. And then he so narrowly gets caught up with the Jimmies. It's like, it took such a long time to rework to get him back to Kelson,
right,
kind of, and have that moment. But then he doesn't travel on to Cillian Murphy's character without Emma Laird's character. So I'm like, you could rework that and make it a little bit more streamlined. Again, it's hard to say right now because the trilogy's not complete. We don't know where things are going to tie up, but it does put more pressure on it to where it's like, all right, but you need to validate some of the stuff that you've set up. You need to finish some of your storylines. So I love it as is. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see Cillian Murphy back because he's killing it in his career. He's blowing up everywhere. He was a character actor, I feel like, for the longest time, but between Peaky Blinders, Oppenheimer, even his small roles in Dunkirk, the Batman film, like, he's everywhere now, I feel like. And I love it. And he just seems so charming, especially in this role, where he's just like, yeah, we're going to go help him, and him just quizzing his daughter on stuff. I was like, hell yeah. Like, I liked the feeling that this movie had of just hope. Just kind of going through it, especially with Kelson's trials with Samson and trying to figure that out. I like that kind of edge that they're leaning into, and I'm like, I'm excited to see where that kind of goes. I just can't wait for a third one now, though. I'm really digging this trilogy. This felt like an Empire Strikes Back. Not like it's that good, but it serves the purpose of what an Empire Strikes Back in that film, or that trilogy, but with the 28 franchise. So I'm really excited for the third. I loved this movie. And like I said, I do think that this one's an improvement on the first, or 28 years later.
Yeah, it's again, I realize that I'm in the minority. Like, I was talking to people at work that saw this movie, and they're like, oh, I fucking love it. Like, this is great. This is one of my favorite horror movies I've seen in a while. And I'm like, I'm glad people are loving it. Like, that's great. And I feel like just kind of a surprising movie. Like, we don't get a lot of these where the sequel comes out like 6 months after the other one.
Yeah, that's an interesting release.
We don't get that much. Like, that happened with like The Matrix back in the day, where it was like a year later or something. So was it the first one in The Matrix came out, and then the second and the third came out like back to back? Or was it? Okay. Yeah, it was like Reloaded and Revolutions, like pretty close. I think it was the same year.
Yeah, I think it came out, just beginning and end.
Yeah, but yeah, I was a little bit, I don't even know if disappointed is the right word, because I wasn't like anticipating this movie a lot, but it just didn't give me what I wanted. I guess I wanted more of an arc for Spike, because I loved his arc in the first movie, and I think pairing him with Kelson more, and like you mentioned, the kind of hope of finding a cure, I think that could have been an interesting pairing to see more of in this movie. But also, at the end of this movie, we don't see Naomi Harris. She was alive at the end of 28 Days Later. Yeah. I'm assuming that she has maybe died, and Cillian Murphy's watching the kid. But it'll be interesting to see how what they reveal in the next movie.
Where did you see this movie at?
I saw it at actually a really good theater experience. Imagine Egan on the EMX screen, which is their biggest one. They have Dolby sound in there, so it was like the Iron Maiden scene really fucking rocked in that theater. So a good theater experience, and like the sound and everything. Like I said, the visuals in the movie looked really good.
I've had kind of interesting theater going experiences for both these 28 Years Later films. The first one I saw it at the Main, and it was on like a really hot day, and I was trying to find parking, and I had to park because they don't have their own parking lot because it's in the cities, so that you have to find a meter or an open spot, and I had to walk like 3 blocks, basically jog 3 blocks while the start time of the movie was already going. So I was like, fuck, how long are these trailers going to be? And I'm just hoofing it, and I get in, and I was just pissing sweat the entire movie. Not from the movie. The movie is suspenseful, but I was just so sweaty, and I was so pissed. And then I had a good time. Seeing Bone Temple, I saw it at AMC. I saw it like midday on like 2. I saw it at like a 2 o'clock showing.
Rosedale?
Rosedale AMC. And the guy next to me got up and left maybe 8 times to get refills of drinks and to get more food. This boy was putting food down. And not only that, I don't think it was his body odor. I think it was just all the things he was shoving into his fucking mouth and his gullet. But he smelt like if someone was burping into your face that had just eaten like concession hot dogs. The entire theater reeked like that for me. I was going to throw up. I felt so gross. And then when we get to that barn sequence where they're skinning stomachs off, which I like, they're like, take off their shirt. And it's skinning their top or their torso. And I'm like, watching that while this dude's just hot dogs next to me, I'm like, oh my God. I'm gonna fucking die. So that was a rough experience. I'm hoping that the third one, I have a somewhat normal experience.
Yeah.
It was so just nasty. I was like, oh my god.
Gross. One other random thing I just thought of. You mentioned the barn scene again. There's a thing that happens in that scene that bothers me in so many movies, even movies that I love, where there's like a duel going down. It's one of the guys that was tied up, and then one of the girls, one of the Jimmies, I don't, whatever fucking Jimmy variant she was, but she's like on top of him, like about to kill him.
I know what you're gonna say.
And then somebody up top from the barn puts like a hook down, and it goes through her head. And it's a solid probably 45 seconds to a minute.
Where no reaction is
where
happening.
you don't see the hook, but like you see she's like, ugh! And like you hear that she like got hit by something. And then everybody's like, nobody reacts to it until the camera cuts away.
And she's surrounded by people.
Yeah.
They're all watching this exchange.
And like, that's one of my least favorite things in movies is when it, like, what the camera is showing is not what everybody else is seeing.
Yeah, this is not happening real time for every other
Yeah, they're seeing this fucking hook go down in her head, but it's 45 seconds for them to react. Again, this happens in so many movies I love. It's just a movie thing.
It stood out to me too, and I completely forgot about that. But I remember sitting in the theater and I was like, they cut away and you see Jack O'Connell's face pretty quickly after that, and he's still like, she's shocked by it. And I was like,
yeah,
we've been here for a minute now.
Right.
With that hook in her head. You guys are all watching her fight this guy to the death. Like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
I remember that. That was... It's annoying when they do shit like that because it is pretty common. It just kind of sneaks up on you.
Yep.
And it's like, I feel like you guys should know in the edit, like, how do
I think it's just a thing of watching so many movies,
Yeah.
you know, like we do, and we're like,
did you want us to clap? Like,
yeah, like
you saving room for applause? Like, fucking
Right.
get on with the story. Get on with the rest of the scene, even. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm glad that people are liking this movie a lot. I'm happy that a January movie is getting a lot of love. It's not doing great at the box office. I hope it has good legs.
The first one, or 28 Years Later, I also did fine. It did well compared to its budget, so I'm hoping that this one can as well.
Yeah, and you know, even though this one didn't really work for me, I'd maybe give it like a B minus, C plus,
okay.
Maybe C plus, somewhere in that range. I am, like I said, excited for the next movie. You know, it sounds like they're getting the crew back together, Cillian Murphy, obviously. So excited to see what that can hold. Hopefully, I like it better than these other two because 28 years later, this trilogy has been a little bit disappointing for me overall. But I'm glad that you have enjoyed it along with a lot of other people.